So tirzepatide is like one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory systemic drugs that you can have, except it doesn't degrade your health over time like many anti-inflammatories do. It boosts it. It boosts liver health, kidney health, heart health, brain health. It's a neuro anti-inflammatory. And so this is just the one drug, and the AI revolution of drug discovery is here. It's coming.
Are there any steps that you've kind of helped people navigate through to take them from maybe entrenched bad habits and wrong mindsets to get them to consistently make those positive changes?
So I'll give you an example.
If you were to design a program for someone to help them live as long as possible, and you were to recommend anything nutrition-wise, training-wise, lifestyle-wise, what would you prescribe to that person and why?
I'm going to say something that I think is important.
What brings you the greatest happiness? Okay, welcome everyone to the Longevity Lounge. Season 2 is upon us and we are excited. We have a new co-host with us today. His name is Ethan. Welcome, Ethan.
Hello.
And we also have an incredible guest lined up that we're going to be speaking with today. Incredible conversation. Tell us who we've got today.
Today we have Dr. Mike Israetel, a major fitness educator. He has a PhD, a master's. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a bodybuilder. And today we talk about fitness, routines, building habits, changing our identity, and doing everything we can to just live longer.
Yeah. And we really dive into some really compelling things. Like, what does the ideal routine look like to maximize our health and our well-being so that we can have that wonderful long life that we're all seeking?
It's a great episode. You guys are going to love it.
Let's jump in.
Okay. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. For the Beamer members and audiences that are listening today, for those of you who don't know who Dr. Mike is, which if you don't, you're living under a rock, because Dr. Mike, arguably, in my opinion, if he's not the most, he's one of the most influential, biggest educators in the fitness space right now. PhD, master's, professor, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, bodybuilder, pretty much everything fitness related. This guy's got it. But for those of you who may not, for some unlikely reason, know who you are, we did want to give a little bit of a background of who you are and just give you a moment to speak on how you came into this position. Because I think your story is quite unique in that, if I understand correctly, you were born in Russia, your family comes from Russia, you're now living in the States, you're on all social media platforms, kind of health fitness expert. Could you give us a little bit of insight into that? How did that happen? So were you born and raised in Russia, or was it just, you were born there and then came to the States? What's your story there?
I was born in Russia in 1984. Thank you for having me on, by the way. This is awesome. I was born in 1984 in Moscow, Russia. And when I was exactly age 1.5, I announced to my parents that I was going to be in the social media space in the mid-2020s in the United States. Now, frankly, they thought this was baffling because not only was the concept of going to the United States somewhat alien to them, the idea that social media was even a thing, they couldn't understand. And I said all this in perfect English, by the way, which they really found confusing because they're Russian. But pretending that none of that happened, I was born for real in 1984 in the Soviet Union at the time in Moscow. And in 1991, my family emigrated to the United States. So I still speak Russian fluently, although poorly. I understand it also poorly, but fluently. So I can get around. And when I was 7, we started living in the suburbs of the Detroit metropolitan area. It was a fine time. Went to high school and started lifting in high school because I got into wrestling, and I was like, oh, being stronger here would probably help. Eventually, I fell in love with lifting. I started the powerlifting club that we had in college at the University of Michigan. Fell in love with the science of training because I was just from a selfish perspective, interested in learning how to get stronger. And, I was already a nerd, so I know, okay, science is going to have better answers here than just intuition by itself. And then I did a master's program, took a year to work in New York City as a personal trainer, figured I really just didn't know nearly as much as I wanted to know. Did a PhD, a little bit of a labor of love, learned some really, really cool stuff in there. And then after that, I became a professor at several institutions in a row. And during that professor time, the company that we had, RP, which was originally a coaching company and then a coaching and digital products company, books and templates and stuff. Eventually, we got into the app space, built two apps, hypertrophy training app and RP diet coach app. And now we run the apps and we have training, we have digital products, we do that. And at some point in the middle of my PhD, towards the end of my PhD program, I was on Facebook and I just started kind of posting random ideas I had about lifting, like just little tidbits that I thought I just wanted to tell people about, whoever would listen. I was just really interested in them. And I figured, like, a younger version of me would really have appreciated seeing this. And so I started, then Facebook kept going, and then I started Instagram and that kept going. And then at one point, we were producing videos in-house for our own RP ecosystem. And we had already had Scott, the video guy, in employment doing that. And a series of events later, I was like, hey, like, do you want to start a YouTube channel? As it seems like a thing. And he's like, yes, but it's going to have to take a lot of thought. And he really thought about it. And we sort of tracked a kind of plan. And then we produced videos for several years before we really blew up. And once we blew up, just kind of kept going for a while. And now it's like stabilized and receded a little bit. And it goes in waves, but like the waves are all way bigger than they used to be. So we've kind of arrived in YouTube land. And it's been cool because the original idea was to just give people lots of information that transmuted into information combined with humor. And humor got a little too snarky for my tastes, a little bit back in the celebrity critiques era. And so for about a year and a half now, we've been leaning into like positivity and self-deprecating humor, which I prefer anyway. And so that's been really fun. And it's kind of what we're doing now is just, I think our mission will be complete when we go into every gym across the country and everyone is going to be training like at least to a minimum scientifically literate standard. And I know our mission's not done yet because that doesn't happen often. It happens way more often than it used to, which is awesome because I usually see somebody squat, they'll rack the bar and I'll be like, dude, that was awesome. And they're like, thank you. No one ever says anything to me. And I'm like, no one knows what they're looking for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like you have like one chimp making Shakespearean level literature out of 100 chimps, and you like give it a banana. It's like, thanks, man. You really like this? Like, this is amazing. And like, well, the other chimps hate it. Like, well, yeah, they don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a lot of work left to do, but basically, like the entire reason the company exists is like when people. There's two facts. A lot of people really want to get in shape and get healthier and sexier and all that stuff that comes with it. And like very few people relative to that number that want to get in shape know the very good basics of how to accomplish that. And so RP is just designed as a temporary company designed to close that gap. As soon as everyone needs to know what they need to know, it's just not going to be a reason for us to exist.
What's driven all of this? Because everything in your life that we see is all encapsulated into what appears to be like one complete whole here in terms of physicality, fitness, education, learning, but it's all around maximizing
Yeah.
the performance of the human body. What's
Yes.
that massive interest?
Fitness is only one realm of what I do. It's what I'm known for the most, but I have all kinds of other nerdy interests and hobbies that frankly nobody cares about. I have a whole other YouTube channel about them. It's not as big as the fitness channel, but it's getting there. It's climbing and got a few subscribers. But on the fitness front, to me, one of my big unifying purposes, and it used to be, man, I want to get in incredible shape myself, and I'm going to learn everything I can. And then I know how to get in shape um, pretty well. I can help other people at least as well as I know. So
Mm.
that used to be the big thing. But more and more, as I'm getting older, maybe I'm looking around and I'm noticing that a lot of people are occupying bodies, which, if you looked at it like a hardware perspective in the tech industry, you'd be like, what firmware is this? Why do you have this still? It's like a Nokia phone when all of your people around have iPhones.
Mm.
It's like, and people don't like it. One thing I do if I'm in a public place and I see someone who's very overweight, in a way that is shaped, that is probably close to universally not as attractive as it could be. I often wonder, do they like that sort of thing? Because if they like it, dude, that kind of swag and vibes means they're like 100 out of 10 type of person. Like if you look like most people consider unattractive, but you feel amazing about it, like I literally just want to be your friend to figure out how the hell you're doing that so I can do it too and just be around you longer. But I suspect that many people do not enjoy being in bodies they do not find attractive or healthy or physically capable. And those are really almost the same thing on a general level, you know? And so I find this to be like a very first world injustice of some sense. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I want to do my best to help people access information and technology and help that takes them from being in the body they're stuck with, sort of, and getting that body to be more of the body that looks and performs and lasts in longevity, like the body that we know they can have if they just reorganize slight or major portions of their lives. And I want to be very clear about something. I'm never, ever, ever trying to be preachy. You won't see me on TV, telling people they're fat or, that whole biggest loser mentality where like, oh, they just real talk you like you're fat and it's killing you. Like I'm not into that stuff, man. I think fat people are amazing, skinny people are amazing, people are amazing, and how you look in your body is like this teeny teeny feature about you. But like at the same time, while the car you drive is a teeny feature about you, I'd like a world in which everyone has nice cars that are dependable and don't break. And so if I was a car manufacturer, I'd see someone on the side of the road fixing their car, I'd be like, we can do better than this. And so that's a big driving force for me is like helping folks live in bodies that they want to be in as opposed to bodies that they're like, wow, this is just what 45 years of being on God's green earth has given me so far.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
it
yeah.
does, and I think it's interesting because obviously your whole mission, you're so educated, and I think that's what makes the videos so attractive and engaging. Is not only are you sharing so much, but you're sharing so much about celebrities who talk about their fitness routine or coaches or personal trainers. And I was a personal trainer for a couple of years, but even I knew I was like, I don't know everything. But I think one of the things that bothers me the most, especially in the fitness community, is when you have fitness influencers say they're not disciplined. That's why they're not in shape. I am. I get up early. I do the cold plunge. I work out. And though I agree that it does take some discipline, I think it's also misguided to just assume that it's just a discipline issue where it's like, come on, guys, like you're very passionate about working out. You love working out. If you could do anything in the day, you would work out, you'd do the cold plunge. There's a dopamine thing that it's rewarding to do that. And so when people say, kind of look at it as like, well, they're just lazy. I mean, that's who they are. I'm not lazy. I'm hardworking. And though I think that's true, it feels a little bit misguiding because there's a lot of passion in there. There's a lot of fulfillment, a bit of identity in there. And I remember coaching people, and I'm sure you've had this so many times. It feels like it's a little bit more of like a psychological issue where it's like they struggle to bring themselves to work out. They don't see themselves as that, or they don't feel passionate about it. Do you think more on a broad spectrum, it's more psychological than it is effort wise, or what? From your experience, what do you see in that regard?
So much there. Psychology is huge. Whatever physiology you have, you can change a lot if the psychology is right. And if your physiology is awesome, you're lucky you just drew the lucky card. Because if your psychology is not awesome, as soon as your body starts to like age or you start to have different priorities, you're not going to look cool anymore. This is pretty classic with people who in high school, college look amazing. You see them when they're 29 and they look like total. And like, I don't suspect your genetics changed all of a sudden. I mean, epigenetically, you may be expressing things differently, but then you can pretty much tell they're just not prioritizing their fitness, and it was all either genetic or someone made them train, like they were in a football team and they just have to go to the weight room 4 times a week. So that's definitely a factor. I'll also say that it's the willpower situation is complicated, but not so complicated. I think that there is absolutely a thing that is like general underlying willpower that spreads to every part of your life. That is probably like normally distributed. It's on a bell curve in the population. Some people are psychotic work machines, and anything they do just like almost everything else they do. At least the things they find important, they're like, this is gonna watch this, and they just like machine it, and you're like, whoa, holy crap. Like back in New York City, I trained a lot of corporate lawyers, Harvard graduates, and they're just like machines. So like you just tell them to do stuff and they'll break before they stop. And you're like, oh, holy shit, okay, that's what got you through Harvard Law. That makes sense. But there are other people, most of us are in the middle somewhere where, like, if we really want something, really have a passion for it, we're there 24/7 doing it. But other stuff, maybe we're not so dedicated to, and that's not a big deal. And then there are people on the other end of that curve, which is just can't really be bothered to organize their lives to do anything super meaningful long term. And the cool thing is about those people is they typically have like really low rates of anxiety and depression because they're just vibing all the time. But the bad thing is they don't really accomplish as much, this kind of makes sense. So you're completely correct when you say, like, some fitness influencers will say it's a willpower thing. They don't really know where on the spectrum their target audience is. I guess you can have two extremes. One is like a genetically gifted lazy person that pats themselves on the back for being a hard worker, even though like they're not, they're like ridiculously not dedicated. Um, the other end of the spectrum is somebody who's super diligent, but has really terrible genetics. And those people are real. And that whole you're not disciplined enough stuff is going to hit them actually in a pretty particular way because most people who are very disciplined are also a little bit neurotic. Not all, but very many. And they tend to think they're not as disciplined as they are. And they're like, oh, I just need to count everything to the gram instead of to the 5 gram average. You're like, no, no, my friend. None of the people in good shape are doing that, I assure you. They just had better genetics than you. And so they tend to go overboard. And they hear a lot of this advice from fitness influencers about how it's all willpower. And they're just like, it's the only tool they have. And they're just going to crank at it even more and just get really fatigued and burned out. And that's no good either. So I think that another thing you said that was really, really brilliant was, these personal trainers and these fitness influencers, and I'm 100% in this category. So I'll just say us, we have a lot of passion for the thing. Like I don't really go to train because I need to train. I mean, in my overreaching weeks when I'm tired, I do, and then I take a little bit out of willpower, a little discipline required. But most of the time, it's where I want to be. Like, can you imagine? Like, imagine seeing someone in their like, in their late 30s that's like single and super wealthy, and he's just slaying like 25-year-olds like left and right, like amazing interactions. He's got them on like cruise ships and you're like, dude, that must take a lot of discipline. Like, what?
Yeah.
To be in the company of a beautiful woman, it just takes zero discipline at all. It's what I want to do. You're like, oh, okay. I've misconstrued that. But people are like, I love eating my meals. I love lifting. I love being in the community. I love coaching clients. I just have a lot of discipline. And it's like, do you know? Maybe. And some of them are super disciplined as well, but the passion helps. One thing you can do with clients is try to get them into habits first and then make those habits give you great results and have the habits also be super positively framed, like not framing the workout as suffering, framing it as an amazing thing, an ability to really transcend your limitations, and framing the pain as a symptom of growth instead of something to avoid. And what you can do is you can get people from habit into passion. And if you get anyone you're helping with fitness into that passion state, they become like that influencer. And then they wonder why everyone else isn't disciplined, or more likely, they're just like, I love this and I just want to keep doing it. It is much, much easier said than done. And so, at the very least, as a coach or an influencer, what you want to do at number one is to lower the barrier of entry and to increase the probability that people stick into their habits. Because once you get a habit going, you don't even have to love it. Like real talk, fellas, I don't like brushing my teeth. I do when they're like, like notably dirty, and you're like, oh, this is gonna feel great. Like twice a day. Like, do I really have to? Yes, that's what dentists say. It's just a habit. Like, so when I'm in the shower at night, I look at my toothbrush, I'm like, here we go. If you can get people to just do that with their fitness, they get unreal benefits. But getting there is tough because it takes weeks of pushing your body and mind into somewhere it does not want to go. The one last thing I'll say while I'm on this mega rant is there is a bit of a shift in perspective that you have to have in order to relate to regular folks. And here's the perspective. People in the fitness industry, myself included, assume that working out is fun. And the problem is that for most people, it's not fun until later, possibly never, but definitely until later. And healthy eating is also not so fun. And going to bed at 10 p.m. instead of at midnight when you catch your favorite Netflix shows. That's not particularly fun. And so when you sell it as like, oh my God, like you're going to start working out and eating well, it's going to be so amazing. Um, that's cool, but it could be a little bit where you should have set more realistic expectation. Uh,
Yeah.
Something like, hey, this is going to hurt like physically. Because some people will be like, I just don't understand people that don't like to work out. And I'm like, I do. Like, why don't you hit your knees with a hammer for a while? And I'll ask you why you don't like it. Because it hurts. Like, well, working out really hurts, right? And it's not even passive pain. It's like, not only am I hurting you, but you have to keep going and hurt yourself more. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's not fun. And so if you have that perception, it's going to be a little bit tougher to get to you and get you on the workout bandwagon. So that's all considerations for how to get people involved.
It's interesting when you talk about reframing their approach to it, right? Because yeah, I've got an older sister, for example. She's 52, and she has had a gym membership since consecutively every year since the age of 18. She is there all the time. She's exercising all the time. She excelled in sport when she was at school, and she just loves it, right? And it's just a part of her makeup. And every day of every week, she just likes to engage in that type of stuff. I engaged with music, and literature and all the other stuff versus athleticism. That wasn't kind of my bag. But it's interesting the need to transform or reframe our approach to it because, like you said, it is painful, it is uncomfortable, it's not always pleasurable. And so I think certainly as I'm getting older, I'm 50 now, and I recognize that there's been at least a decade in my life where I've been a little bit more relaxed than I should have been, because I allowed myself to get distracted with other things and leaned into what was more comfortable versus what is best. Now, I'm sure there are loads of people out there that are in that camp that are now suddenly going, oh, the pain of the problem is greater than the pain of the solution. Now I need to take action, right? Because now it becomes too uncomfortable to keep doing what I'm doing. Well, are there any steps that you've kind of helped people navigate through to take them from maybe entrenched bad habits and wrong mindsets to get them to consistently make those positive changes?
So I'll give you an example. One thing that you ideally want to have is to articulate a goal and a timeline pretty early,
Mm,
maybe first.
yeah.
People seem to be pretty uncomfortable with unbounded commitments. Like, imagine going on a first date with someone and you're like, hey, like, where do you want me to pick you up? And they're like, oh, like, so for this date, I want you to pick me up here. And you're like, what do you mean for this date? And they're like, well, we'll have other dates, right? And you're like, I mean, yeah, maybe, Jesus.
Yeah.
So when you're like, oh, you're going to start eating healthy, and people are like, okay, forever. They're like, well, should I just eat like bacon flavored ice cream for the next 3 days before I start? Because it's the last time I'll eat tasty food. Am I going to be working out forever? Forever is a long time. And so you want to time box things and say, hey, listen, do you want to try some stuff for like 3 months, just 12 weeks? And it might be really cool. And if you like it, we can talk about ways of like making it way more sustainable and easier in the long run. And then people are like, oh, no, okay, sound too bad. Okay, cool. And then the next big one is to not over dip into types of habits that you're trying to change. If I had one word for this conversation to give some pretend fake wisdom to people out there who are helping with clients or who are in their own fitness journeys and want to make a few mistakes, bandwidth is finite. Bandwidth is finite. It's like you take over, Tesla from Elon, and you're like, what are we gonna do? And you're like, they're like, well, here's what we're doing. What do you think about these trajectories, these verticals? We have cars, we have robots, we have space program. And you're like, I want to do it all. I want even more. They're like, well, so here's how much money we make, and here's how much we can spend. It's literally a bandwidth problem. And so for humans, you have multiple bandwidths. Cost isn't really a thing because gyms are, by modern Western standards, pretty close to free. You eat food anyway, you might as well eat cheaper, healthier food. Time is definitely a bandwidth where people are like, you're not going to have like a business executive from Melbourne, lift like 6 times a week for 2 hours. That's like, like you're not going to have someone who lives in Singapore and helicopter commutes to Malaysia for work be like, oh, you're just doing a low carb diet. Like, I got things going on, man. So that's one. But the biggest one is the bandwidth of habit change stress. So what does that mean? That means if you have a certain number of habits, habits are luckily and unluckily homeostatically stable. Like you're just want to do your habits, whatever they are, you're just going to do them. It's like water finding its own level, just kind of just settle into that doing habits. Now, when you're changing habits, that is not homeostatically stable. It is requiring the imposition of stress. Stress like reminding yourself not to do the thing, stress like rolling your eyes at having to do the thing, stress like having to think about what you're eating instead of just eating it, stress that it like occupies your mind when other things are going on too. And now you're like just using more cognitive bandwidth. And you're just like, I should be thinking about work, but I'm thinking about what my next meal is. And so a huge problem that people get into is they do this life, it's the new me approach. And you see this a lot on January 1st and like New Year's resolutions, like new year, new me. Well, see, the year is a human construct. When the actual year is an astrophysical phenomenon because the Earth does go around the sun at a certain periodicity. When we cut that off is completely at random. The Chinese New Year starts some other time. The Hebrew New Year starts at some other time. The Indian New Year starts at another time. With the Western Jan 1st calendar, the Gregorian calendar starts on Jan 1. Like that doesn't mean anything. Why would you change your life then? First point. Second point, what they try to do is an overhaul. I'm going to get my diet going. I'm going to start doing cold plunges and sauna work, and I'm going to get my sleep on track. And I'm going to work out 4 days a week. Well, fellas, if each one of those is a habit, and we just talked about how changing any given habit requires a big bandwidth commitment, how the hell are you going to change your whole life and actually go through with it without falling off? And the answer is most people fall off. So my big advice is to go and start changing one or two things at a time. For example, we're just going to have you start working out. And for 6 weeks, you're just going to work out. The only new thing you're going to do. You're going to work out twice a week for 40 minutes each time. You eat whatever you want, whatever you normally eat. If you want to eat a little healthier, however you understand that, I'm not going to stop. But don't even worry about that yet. That's bonus points. Just let's get the workout going. Now, after 6 weeks, they're like, I'm in, bro. I'm in. These workouts, I'm doing them. I love it. I'm not quitting. And then after 6 weeks, you go, okay, do you want to start cleaning up your diet? And they're like, yes. And then it's just one thing at a time. Because the workout, remember, that's on homeostasis. That's on habit now. And so it just happens automatically. And now you're like, oh, what about eating? Let me give you like 3 rules of what a healthy meal looks like. And pretty much every meal you put together has to follow these 3 rules, right? Has to have a protein core, has to have plenty of veggies, and has to be not junk food. So, okay, it's very easy. They start doing that after 6 weeks. They're like a machine. They go into gas stations and they know what they want to get. They go into a Subway restaurant, they go into meal prep, they know their shit. And all of a sudden, they have 3 things: exercise lockdown, diet lockdown, and the results of 12-ish weeks of cumulatively leveraging both. Now they look different. Now they feel different. Now they're like, wow, I have 2 incredible habits and a track record of success and momentum and major changes. Then, if you want them, if they're like, hey, I want to get more advanced with diet, I want to do exercise more, you layer that in no more often than once every 6 weeks. Once it's stabilized and they know what they're doing, you can layer in another intervention, get a little bit more complex. The opposite of that approach is to take them on January 1st and redesign their whole diet. And download the RP Hypertrophy app, the RP Diet Coach app. You're going to be living according to the apps. You're going to be spending all your time in the gym. You don't have any friends anymore. You just have me, your personal trainer. That's the only person you talk to. That is like my big, big message is one major thing at a time until you're so settled into it that it doesn't feel like work. That's how you make long-term fitness changes.
You bring up a good point here because something that one thing I want to know is obviously you mentioned this is kind of this like evolution of you don't just go all in black or white, cold turkey, whatever. If someone was to get to this point, I guess kind of making a shift into longevity now, if you were to design a program for someone to help them live as long as possible, and you were to recommend anything nutrition wise, training wise, lifestyle wise, what would you prescribe to that person and why?
I don't know necessarily which one of these I would do first. I could render a decision. It would be a little bit spotty here on the fly, but there are like three or four really big elements to put into place. One big element is to start eating generally healthy food in portion sizes that are likely to lead down the road to you weighing an amount that actuarial tables on longevity say is like pretty close to not a dangerous amount to weigh. So if you're, 5'11" and you weigh 78 pounds, you need to gain like 50 pounds in order to be decently in good health. You're 5'11" and you weigh 360 pounds. You need to lose hundreds of pounds to be in your best health. And the way to lose weight is to control calories. And the easiest way to control calories is to eat mostly nutritious foods. What are those foods? Lean protein sources are ones with healthy fats in them, like fatty dairy, veggies, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats, particularly plant fats, nuts, seeds, oils, things like that. If you stick to minimally processed foods like that and you control your calories, you get this huge double banger of you're eating healthy, which is good for systemic inflammation and all this other stuff. And you're also eating a constricted diet and calories, so you're probably losing weight. In most cases, most of us need to lose a little bit of weight. The tail end of that years later is that you're leaner, healthier top to bottom, and have more muscle mass, and you weigh less. And that all of those are like humongous longevity boosters. The relationship between health and longevity is massive because longevity tends to be limited usually by a breakdown of health. Like it's highly unlikely you'll see an 88-year-old that like compares favorably on every health marker to a 22-year-old and then just dies the next day. You know when someone's probably going to die the next day. They look like they're going to die the next day, and their blood work looks like a Rorschach painting. Some they're like, holy shit, I didn't know liver values could do that. Well, their liver doesn't work anymore. So health and longevity, there are very few hacks in longevity that don't improve health and vice versa. So that's a big one. So the diet stuff is huge. Another one is training. And there are two ends of that that are important to cover. One is building a robust degree of muscle mass. If you can build a lot of muscle mass, it's metabolically anti-inflammatory. It's massively healthy. It's anti-diabetic. It's got just loads of health. It'll also make you strong, which will allow continued mobility. Mobility is huge because it allows you to engage in social connections. If you sit and people only visit you, and when they don't visit you, you don't see anyone except the TV, you're not going to last a long time. I had multiple grandparents go out like that for 15 years of sitting. No fun. And also, if you are able to be strong enough with enough muscle mass to move around, you can take that second box of activity and check it, which is just throughput, like metabolic cardiovascular throughput, being in zone 2, zone 3 cardio, or being just getting 10,000-ish daily steps. Whichever way you go is a much smaller factor than making sure you get plenty of physical activity. So resistance training several times a week to build muscle, and obviously the strength that comes with it, joint and tendon resiliency, range of motion, the whole thing. And then a good degree of physical activity on top of that, whether that's 10,000 daily steps or lots of harder cardio, all those are good. Another one is sleep. If you're getting bad sleep, I'm going to say something that I think is important. It's fashionable, and I'm not just trying to disrespect anyone. I'll explicitly say when I'm trying to disrespect anyone. Um, it's fashionable to believe that sleep is like this bonus thing. Even in lifting circles, it used to be fashionable to be like, here I am at 1 a.m. at the gym. Some people are sleeping, but I'm making gains. Like, oh, you idiot, they make gains while they sleep. You're interfering with the best time for gains by being here. But sleep is not, and this occurs in like career people, like lawyers in New York will be piling up stacks of money and their CV or their resume gets crazy high. And they're like, I don't sleep much, and it's like, but what? You're going to be dead much sooner than you think doing this stuff. Sleep is huge, 7 to 9 hours. And if you have to ask if you're getting enough sleep, you probably aren't. And so sleep quality, sleep quantity, and there are very easy ways to enhance those. And if you can't enhance your sleep quality and quantity with easy ways, you need to start moving into pharmacological ways and sleep study ways to help doctors help you, because it's not a joke. Sleep is the ultimate health elixir. And without it, not a whole lot happens. I would say like sleep is like inflating your tires in a car. If you're properly inflating them regularly, everything seems fine. You're like, I don't know, sleep, whatever. I don't even know what happens during sleep. But you run a flat on the freeway, and all of a sudden your like metal gear is grinding on the road, and you're like, oh shit, that's what tires are for. This is no good. And so you miss a lot of sleep, and it's a bad deal. Another one, really quick, and this is a huge one. I'll say on it's a big category. There's a few things in there: stress management, human relations, and physical touch.
Mm.
If you ever look at the literature on being physically touched by other humans, it's called compassionate touching. There's a lot of subcategories, which range actually from doing competitive jujitsu to one another. Believe it or not, that easily you can check the box of touching like that. It's not so compassionate, but a lot of touching, way too much touching. And then all the way through massage of any kind, and all the way through any kind of romantic activities, or even platonic cuddling, which we know platonic cuddling is really real, but we can debate that in another podcast. And so that human touch, if you look deeply at the literature, is like indispensable for all mammals, actually. Like one of the best things about dogs and cats is they will cuddle with you. It is medicine to your soul when you do that with animals, and sure with people. And so that, plus not being crazy stress bombed all the time, plus making sure that you are having positive social relations, like just having some folks to vibe with, having a community around you. It could be two people, but they care about you. They ask about you. You ask about them. You do some events together every now and again. You stay in touch even on social media. That's a big deal. We've learned from the literature that people who are socially ostracized, who don't get a lot of physical touch, and who are under high degrees of ever-present stress, they just break faster, a lot faster. And my last category, this is a new category, would be looking into seeing what the pharmaceutical industry and the supplement industry has put out recently that might be worth a try. Because now there are supplements, and especially drugs, that are absolutely highly likely to enhance longevity. I'll just give you one right now, tirzepatide. Tirzepatide is one of the modern, they call it the GLP class, even though it's a dual agonist weight loss drug. Even if you don't lose any weight on it, it's a non-weight mediated health benefits are like an absurd laundry list that scientists still can't believe are real and still trying to find out there's some kind of joke. One of the preeminent scientists that was like researching Ozempic, the precursor to tirzepatide, semaglutide it's called. He was kind of like, yeah, like, we didn't really understand how this is happening with all these benefits. We keep looking for ways in which we're wrong, but apparently these drugs are just that good for you. So tirzepatide is like one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory systemic drugs that you can have, except it doesn't degrade your health over time like many anti-inflammatories do. It boosts it. It boosts liver health, kidney health, heart health, brain health. It's a neuro anti-inflammatory. And so this is just the one drug. And the AI revolution of drug discovery is here. It's coming. And it's going to knock out a couple drugs every year, and then a couple drugs every month, and then drugs all the time that are going to be like, you should be taking these because they're going to start to slow down the aging process, reverse it in many cases, and eventually we'll get into full-on biotech age reversal altogether. So I think somebody put it better than I did and said, the next 5 years, just don't do anything stupid like not getting enough sleep, getting crazy stressed, eating tons of junk food, not working out. And if you make it another 5 years, biotech will save you really in a big way. But for now, the basics are huge. And here's the thing, and I'll just call it out and then I'll shut up, I promise. A lot of people have bad diets, not a judgment. Like we all do bad shit all the time. I'm one of these people. Bad diets, bad sleep, bad training or no training. And then they'll be like, is there like a powder I can take for like longevity? And it's like, unfortunately, the powders for longevity now have like teeny tiny effects, beneficial effects, and some of them are real. But if you're not sleeping enough, man, you're talking about 30% versus 2%. Let's like seeing 1,000 zombies and being like, I have a handgun. Like, okay, there's 1,000 of them. Like, right, yeah, sure. So are you saying the handgun doesn't work? Like, no, I'm saying you should have gotten That's what I'm saying. And there's not one around. So that's a big deal, I think, that can bear repeating is supplements are cool, but you have to get the basics squared away if you're serious about longevity.
What do you think? You mentioned Ozempic earlier. If someone's got this focus on balance, like you talked about, in terms of improving their weight, getting their weight to an ideal size, getting their muscle mass, in the right proportion, getting the right sleep, that type of thing. What are your thoughts on people that maybe want to kickstart it or accelerate it with something like Ozempic? What's your thoughts physiologically on that?
There are two problems with that. Problem number one is drugs like Ozempic can cause GI side effects, especially if you're not eating healthy. And so that needs to be managed. It can be managed, but it needs to be attended to. It's not just like you're going to take the shot and everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're going to feel like throwing up a lot. And you're going to be like, what the hell did I do to myself? The other thing is these drugs make you lose a lot of weight because they constrict your eating. And when you lose a lot of weight and you're not resistance training, you lose muscle. And losing muscle is very bad for your health, very bad for your quality of life, very bad for your appearance. Ideally, you don't want to lose any muscle. And so, if you can eat pretty healthy, if you can manage the drug side effects, and if you can consistently resistance train at least 20 minutes a day, 2 times a week, then taking a drug, I would say tirzepatide is now it's just better than semaglutide because it actually preferentially burns off your visceral fat, the fat around your organs and your liver. And it does it so well that they're like, this is legit like a health elixir at this point. And Ozempic, semaglutide does not do that. And so a drug like tirzepatide, in conjunction with the basics of working out and the basics of good diet, I would say like should be the average consideration of an adult who wants to start getting in shape rather than, well, I'm just going to start without the drug. I would say it's just better to take the drug than not take the drug for most people. And I also say it's not really a kickstart. You should just plan to be on tirzepatide at whatever lower or higher dose as needed until a better drug comes out and you can switch to that. That's how I would see it. These are things you just need to keep taking because they're great. And imagine going to the store and getting a multivitamin and being like, oh, I just kind of want to kickstart my fitness journey. And the person selling you is like, so you're not coming back next month to buy another bottle? Like, no, I think it's like a good month will do me right. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You keep taking them, your body runs through them and they give you benefits every time you take them. You stop taking them, you stop getting the benefits. That's how we should be looking at drugs like tirzepatide, 100%.
We had a fitness influencer, Fiona Judd,
Hmm.
on a little while ago, and she was saying a lot of people that she works with, they're nervous, women, I should say, reluctant to pick up weights for fear of bulking, getting too bulky and things. But she was saying, of course, to your point, it's just so important for overall health to build your muscle mass. Do you think people are getting preoccupied or getting imbalanced in their pursuit of looking good to actually feeling great? Because we can have maybe a good physique, but internally, if we're not eating the right stuff, if we're taking shortcuts, kind of trying to fast track things, we could actually be doing more damage than good. Thoughts on that?
Tough to do more damage than good when you're in a very lean muscular physique. If you use a lot of steroids and growth hormone to get there, it can happen. If you eat really bad, low quality food, but somehow get enough protein, it's not ideal for sure. But I would say with the women that are afraid of getting bulky is they are looking at a classic correlation versus causation dichotomy and mislabeling it. And they're looking at extremes as evidence of what happens to normal people. So most women that work out with weights, when they have their jacket on at work, can't tell. And when they take it off, they're like, whoa, cool, you have like really shapely arms, but they're not gigantic or something like that. Women have the genetics of being female, which make muscle growth more difficult. And they also have a high estrogen, low testosterone environment, which is like if you wanted to play a joke on a bodybuilder, you would just have them take a lot of estrogen, very low testosterone, and very good luck. It's really hard to gain muscle. So women are actually in not a great position to gain freaky muscle. There's another complexity. Freaky muscle, not something that happens overnight. I mean, I have pretty freaky muscle. I look kind of strange to the average person. I mean, it took me 10 years of training to start to look remotely freaky, and 5 to even look like I lifted weights much. And I'm a guy, fairly decent genetics for the thing. And so to those ladies that are afraid of getting too bulky, like I promise it won't sneak up on you. It'll be like, oh, after 2 months, I like really like how my body looks. I've been training 3 days a week. Well, this is great. I don't really want any more muscle. I'm just going to train for strength and fitness. And I'm just going to train twice a week and see if I can just like not gain much more. And then your body will like flatline. And that's easy. You want more muscle? You'll have to train a lot for weeks and weeks and months to even make a meaningful impact on that. And so, the probability that you're just going to get bulky is ridiculous. Also, as soon as you get bulky, you stop training or go down to 1 time a week training and you unbulk really, really fast. It's not like this permanent thing. The last thing I'll say is almost always what determines bulk size is how many calories a day you eat. If you lift weights and you control your calories, eat plenty of protein, you will gain muscle, you will lose fat, and you'll just be sexier, period. But the same size, and actually significantly less size because you're underdosing your calories. If you eat like whatever and you start lifting weights, yeah, you might bulk up, but it's the eating that's the problem. It's not the fact that you're lifting weights because you would have been bulky one way or another, just been bulky with fat. It's always interesting. I mean this in all in good faith. Women that are like 50 or 60 pounds overweight with fat, you tell them about lifting weights and they're like, well, I don't want to get bulky. Too late, Karen. You're already bulky. Do you want to gain some muscle and lose some fat and have weigh 30 pounds less and have incredible shape, have way better health? Yes. There's like a good example. There's many examples of actresses in popular media that lift weights plenty. Like Brie Larson is one of these people. You would never see her in a dress and be like, oh my God, she's on steroids. You'd be like, whoa, it's gorgeous. Gal Gadot from Wonder Woman, she lifts weights. Does that look like a Arnold Schwarzenegger reborn? It doesn't. Almost all the women you see that look enormously jacked, they're on steroids. And that's a cool choice if you like that look. It just doesn't sneak up on you, is what I'm trying to say.
So you bring up a good point with this kind of apprehension for women not wanting to work out. And I think one of the issues that I see, at least within the fitness industry, is even, I don't know, there seems to be an endless number of health experts, fitness experts, whatever it might be. But it seems like even with new data and research coming out, that even those experts are being proven wrong or whatever it might be. Or, there might be some women who are like, I just want to look good and attractive. And they hear this terrible advice from from some, I don't know, female fitness influencer and they just do it immediately. But even there are some doctors and medical, I don't know, surgeons who give advice on things. So it's like, some of it seems a little absurd, but sometimes I even struggle to know, well, who do I look to for the best source of information? Because as you know, you're constantly involved in new research yourself. So what would you say to someone who's like, I want to get information, but I want to get the best information because sometimes I don't even
Correct
know.
information.
Yeah, I don't even know who to trust these days because it seems to always be changing. And you got like the Gary Breckers out there who are giving all this, longevity advice, and people are like, okay, I'm just kind of desperate. So I don't know, who would you look for in terms of criteria on the best kind of information on social media when it seems to be so saturated?
What I would do is a sequence of 3 things. One is talk to any Frontier Lab AI chatbot, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, any of them. They have very truth-seeking world models. They know a lot of stuff and they're very wise. They're not perfect, but they're less biased than almost all people. Just ask them to explain the basic rules and then the to-dos and the concepts of how to get in shape or whatever kind of shape you want to be. And ask them for the like warning signs of BS and stuff that is a myth that a lot of people think, because there's a lot of that stuff. And Once you have a conversation that could last anywhere between 5 minutes to several hours with an AI chatbot about the basics of exercise, you start to really be like, I kind of know some stuff. Yeah, this is really cool. You can just put that into action right away. What you can also do is step number two, ask the AI chatbot, be like, hey man, can you like tell me some, because like talking to you is fun and all, but I can't like drive in the car. I want to hear some podcasts. I want to see some videos. I want like, real humans to tell me stuff. Cause like AI can't tell you like some of the more practical real world nuanced stuff. I just never lived in the real world. And so it was like, is there like content creators that are like evidence based, that are like respectful of science, but also have real world experience and probably saying like more true than not? And it'll give you a list of like, it's like, just give me 10 people. And it'll have Jeff Nipper down there. It'll have a few other folks on there. I might make the list by accident. And so you'll have a bunch of people, and you could say, can you give me female wellness and fitness influencers that are evidence-based? It'll give you some really good, like, it's not always going to get it right, but it's 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, it's going to get really good. And then you have people to listen to that have been kind of vetted by AI to be like, they're not going to steer you too wrong. Then you listen to those people, and anything they say that you're like, I want to believe this, but seems off, anything of that nature, you can just go back to AI and be like, hey, Mike Israetel said this about muscle growth. Like, is that really true? And they're like, well, no, not really. I think he was exaggerating this part. It does happen in these kinds of people, but I think he's speaking to a hardcore audience. And for you as a beginner, XYZ is better. And I go, okay, that's really cool. So I'd say those three things: talk to AI, get it to recommend some fitness influencers, evidence based, consume their content, and then talk to AI again. And that flywheel continues. And then all of a sudden, you like know stuff and have a pretty unbiased, truth seeking partner in your quest to not get ripped off, because the AI is really polite, it's really formal, it's really caring, it's not going to crap on your ideas, but it's also not going to let you get too far afield in most cases of reality. Like if you're like, hey, like our horoscopes like legitimately true in a mechanistic sense, it's going to be like, probably not. It's not going to be like, well, yeah, it just depends on what your truth is. It's not going to do that to you. And that's a great thing. And I'll say this is an answer I've given a few times. I've been doing interviews like this for maybe like 15 years at this point. And I usually don't do that because we just did not have AI until a few years ago. And until like last year, we didn't have AI that was like predictably good. It's
Mm.
just going to get better and better from here on out. But like that's the shortcut, because here's why I say this. Your question is excellent, and it is incredibly difficult to solve without AI. Imagine we don't have AI. How are you supposed to know if someone's lying to you or not? I had a whole video, multiple videos, a whole heuristic checklist. I've done podcasts about how to detect BS. It's really philosophy heavy, real sciencey stuff. Like, for example, people will make bombastic claims. People will say, only I know this, or say, I've never been wrong, or the industry's lying to you. Like, those are telltale signs that they're probably onto some BS, but maybe not. And so you kind of comport those together. And I remember one time this one fitness influencer who will remain nameless said it was like a 4 minute video, and it was almost everything that he said was wrong, like according to me at least. And I'm trained in the field, and like it's not just that I'm trained. That's not like a swag for me knowing things. It's just wrong, guys. It's just like something you could have Wikipedia'd and found out was not how it worked. And I sent it to a friend of mine who is a person who like finished high school at age 14 because he ran out of advanced calculus to take. Like software developer, like one of the smart, just smart, just plain old real smart. Like he's gonna be smarter than most of my friends, most of your friends, most of everyone's friends. And he's not educated specifically in exercise and sports science. I sent him this clip, and like I rolled, like, oh, can you believe this? And he's like, I didn't find anything in here objectionable. And I was like, oh crap. Because if this guy can't detect the BS, then how the hell is anyone else supposed to do it? And so
Yeah.
I was like, I remember that kept me up metaphorically for a few nights. I was like, oh my God. Of course this influencer is just going to continue to get more famous, and very few people are going to realize that he's spewing mostly like on the unfiltered nonsense. Because like even really, really smart people that aren't specifically educated in the field can't tell. And so that's gnarly. With AI, way better. But without AI, good luck.
How do you see AI changing your space here? Because I mean, you're a massive educator. You're you've got so much experience and knowledge and degrees and hands-on experience here. But how do you see AI enhancing and supporting what you do?
I mean, it already does. I will do most of my literature searches and reviews assisted with AI.
Mm,
Um, GPT-5 Pro is like really smart.
yeah.
And if you it's even smarter in the hands of someone that knows things because you can give it very specific prompts. You go, okay, here's in the relationship between muscle growth and soreness. Here are things we know to be true. Here are question marks. Can you answer these questions in a way that both red teams the situation and steel mans the situation pro muscle growth? It loves very specific requests. It'll
Mm,
do 10 minutes of thinking, it'll come back, and I'll do several cycles with it because it's not perfect. There's no thing magically. Several cycles in, I've learned a ton, and it's learned a ton. Together, we know way more than we knew separately, like an hour before this exercise started. So for me on the expertise end, it's just like drinking from an infinite cup of knowledge. I'm just like guzzling it all the time. I'm drunk on shit. So I love it. It's phenomenal. Um, we're in various ways that helping AI is helping us enhance our digital products offering, our apps, though the
yeah.
true deep AI integration is still a little bit of a ways off, though we're looking forward to that. And then for regular people out in the world that are just trying to get in shape, I mean, AI is like an awesome, really smart friend. They could at least tell you, like, nah, don't do this workout. This seems like not the best idea. Or hey, you should try this workout instead. Well, actually, yeah, no, this is the workout you definitely want to be doing. Just change this last exercise to this, and you'll be good to go. So I think for AI, it's just like more intelligence is almost always better than less intelligence.
Yeah.
And so if you can get a really wise partner to at least give you some vibes on what you're thinking of doing or give you ideas, help you answer questions, I mean, I think it's wonderful. And only the beginning. I estimate there's probably less than 3 or 4 years before most of us have AI assistants that know us really well and can give us personalized coaching and advice on
Mm.
life and definitely health, fitness, and longevity. And I think that's going to be like the greatest thing that's ever happened.
And I think it's gonna, I like what you said about, we're smarter together than we are apart, and you come together, you work together, you craft the questions, the answers, and you get something so much better and richer coming out the other side. Someone shared with me an example a while back about, when the calculator was invented and how math teachers were nervous. They're like, people, the students aren't going to know how to do math properly. This is going to compromise our education journey and what have you. And then what ended up happening was the complete opposite. It sped up the process of learning and it accelerated them and took them to newer levels and more complex levels of math than what they were getting to before. So now all of a sudden, what we see is it's an accelerant versus lazy people are going to get lazier. Actually, smart people are going to get smarter. Hardworking people are going to get more efficient. And our new definition of best, I think, will be just incomprehensible, I think, very, very quickly.
Agreed.
This gets into another question that I wanted to bring up as well. And you've had a few podcast episodes where you've talked about this specifically, just on its own subject, of the future of beauty standards, AI, what we're going to look like with the enhancement of technology and the new innovations that are coming out. It's almost like you see all these new AI clips or images of these like perfectly looking men and women. And I mean, already the fitness industry, I feel like you've already got so many amazing physiques to look at. It's already kind of affecting the way we perceive standard or
Mhm.
normal. What is your philosophy or belief on what the future will look like? Because I feel like it's getting so extreme now, where it's like, man, is the norm going to be like we either look perfect or just terrible? Like, how do we find what is, healthy and good for us, but still kind of acknowledging that, it's still going to keep evolving? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that evolution in the future?
Yeah, a ton. There are two things going on there, I think. One is there is like a comparison mindset that people have. It's natural to compare yourself to others. And when the average person in your social group or when people in your social group that are exceptional are really exceptional appearance wise, at least for some kinds of people, it can tempt them into being like, man, I need to look like this. Like, I need to upgrade my shit. And it can make them feel not so great about how they look. And that is definitely a negative. And so that's something that we all go through as teenagers and typically come out the other end as more mature adults that are like, some people look like this. I look like this. I'm my own person. And it's a maturity issue in most cases. Though not an easy thing to solve and sometimes quite tough. On the other side of the coin, there is an objective real world thing going on. The things that make somebody attractive are two things: fundamentally universal and self-perceived. For example, if you were a Caucasian woman who grew up in Arkansas and you were substantially overweight and you woke up the next day in the body of an Indian Bollywood actress who's like mythically beautiful and in phenomenal shape, it is highly unlikely after the confusion of what the hell is happening to you, God comes down, he's like, hey, it's just a social experiment. Do your best, be kind to people. And after a week, you can, like, I don't know, I'll give you like a lot of money or something. I'll give you the body of your dreams. If you learn the right lesson, see ya, poof, and he disappears. You're like, what the was that? Am I still hallucinating? So once you've gathered your mind together, it's unlikely that you're going to be like, oh, but this is an Indian standard of beauty. I don't watch Bollywood. You're going to be like, God damn, line them up. Where are the men? I'm about to, if you, I'm going to have a husband here in a few days. I don't need God anymore. And so you are going to love how you look, because the difference between hyper attractive women of all races, and all ethnicities and all cultural standards is like, man, it's really small. It's like on the extremes. And so there's this very important thing we have to do, is make sure no one ever feels ostracized or left out or less than because a lot of people are pursuing elite aesthetics. But at the same time, if people want to pursue the better and better looking versions of themselves, God bless them. Like everyone wants to look like their version of cool. It's going to be a real similar version, but there's going to be tons of variation because some people want really big lips and to be 6'3", and some people want super thin lips and a gaunt face and to be 5'1", everything in between. You guys know, like when you watch Hollywood movies, when there's all kinds of different characters, they're all friends, but they're all hot. They're just different kinds of hot. Like that's where I think people want to go. So I don't think we're headed in the dystopian world of everyone looks the same. Like, unlikely. But are we heading into a world in which you don't have to be the super fat, unattractive girl in your group of friends? You don't have to like wish guys talk to you instead of just talk to you to get to your hot friends. Yeah, man, I don't think anyone wants to live in that place. And I think we're trying to dig ourselves out. And I think through the 2020s and especially 2030s, most people that are going to want to look like the best version of themselves in their own head, they're going to make big strides to do that. And they're going to be able to do that. And I think that's a beautiful thing on that balance.
I think this comes right back to what we started with at the beginning in talking about how we frame things in our mind, and the role that our mind plays just in our whole approach to all of this, right? People say that the quality of our lives is proportionate to the quality of our emotions, right? And so, if I have self-love, and I view myself in a positive light, I'm going to treat myself a little differently. And interestingly, on this topic of attractiveness and that type of thing, I think confidence is one of the most beautiful and attractive qualities that someone can possess, right? And so I think that really starts to take shape in a very different way as to how we see ourselves and how we see others. Um, so as we kind of come to a conclusion here, I'll kind of, like I said, we're kind of going full circle. Um, when you look at all that you've accomplished here, and this principle of the quality of life being connected to our emotional state, what is it that, with all the stresses and all of the bandwidth that you've got to juggle and manage on a day-to-day basis, what brings you the greatest happiness?
What brings me, I mean, there are many things in life that bring me a ton of pleasure. One of them is calmly and diligently, quietly working on like projects in my office here, just a
Yeah.
blank room.
Yeah.
I love that hyper focus on solving like big problems. I think it's just awesome and real deep workflow state type of stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing is the ability for me to upgrade my body when I see changes in my body from lifting and I like how it's starting to look and feel. Like, that's awesome. And the other thing is friendship and companionship is a really big deal. Being around folks that are awesome and vibes and care about you and you care about them and you're kind of doing life together. That's
Yeah.
like a hole that I don't think anything else can fill. I think that we do have a sort of loneliness epidemic in the world, really, especially in modern countries. And I think that it's high time for that to change. And at least one of the ways that the aesthetic revolution will help change it is when more people look like how they want, they'll be more confident, they'll want to socialize more, they'll get out there more, and they'll have great interactions. I mean, some people look to their own eyes so not great that they're like, someone's like, oh, you should date. You're like, why would I date? Who wants to date me? I don't want to date me. And I'm, geez, how do you talk them out of that? But if they're getting a little healthier, having a higher quality of life, looking better, they might start to mix and mingle a bit. And it's the mixing and mingling itself that does all the work at the end.
Yeah, no, I really agree. Yeah, Viktor Frankl said, yeah, there's two things that kind of bring the greatest sense of purpose and meaning to life: suffering or service. Right, and I do think, as we learn our way through suffering, that gives us certainly great purpose, because then our task is to teach others. Right, what have I learned? What have I become as a consequence of this? That gives great meaning. And that's perhaps the service that comes out the other side. But then, like you said, doing that with someone that loves you, that you love them. We're in it together. That companionship, that relationship. We talked about this earlier in the episode, and I think that's just profoundly important for regulation. Not just producing happiness, but maintaining that emotional state in a way that is healthy and positive and, yeah, enriching. So yeah, I'm with you. I think those, having something deep and meaningful to overcome and to see through, to help others, and to do that with people that we love and enrich us. That's a great source of happiness right there. Yeah. Excellent. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for being on today. We've just been thrilled to have you. It's been insightful, and we just feel really honored to have you on. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a huge honor, gentlemen. Thank you for putting up with my for about an hour and a half.
It's been time well spent, man. Seriously.